All right, we are live, Coach. We are live. All right, listen, y'all. Coaching is a labor of love. It is a labor of sharing. Coaching is more than a job; it's actually a calling. Welcome to Coaches Co-op. I'm your host. My name is Coach P. And we're pulling back the curtain to chat with the amazing coaches who shape the world of athletics. I have an amazing coach with me here this evening, a young man by the name of Coach Bryan Harris. Coach, welcome to the co-op.
Oh, thank you. That's a heck of an introduction. Appreciate it.
Coach, there's a lot more here. But go ahead and introduce yourself to the people who may not know who you are.
I'm Coach Bryan Harris. I've been a head basketball coach for 23 years. I'm the assistant athletic director over at Barbers. I've been in Texas for about 15 years, and I'm enjoying my time coaching girls basketball.
That's awesome, Coach. That's awesome. So let me ask you this first. You watching NBA playoffs?
I do, yeah, I do. It's the only time I watch the NBA.
Okay, okay. So let me just ask you, who's going to win it all?
Well, I mean, the West is pretty strong. I think it's going to come out of the West. I don't think the Celtics are strong enough. Uh, I'm kind of a Mavericks fan, but I think they're a little bit injured. I don't know. I think Denver's going to win it because they just have the experience and they got the MVP.
Man, they're tough, Coach. They're tough, and I can't stand them because I'm a Lakers fan. But they are so good, and Jokic is so fun to watch. But check this out. Check this out. You're a Mavericks fan.
Yes, sir.
If the Mavericks can somehow pull this thing off, Dallas will have the Major League Baseball champ. They will have the NBA champ. Nobody pays attention to hockey, so we're not going to really worry about that. Are you a hockey
Dallas
fan,
Stars.
Coach?
They're still in it. Dallas Stars are in it.
The Dallas Stars are still in it, but
Yes.
and then the Dallas Cowboys don't actually have to win anything to remain relevant. So if the Mavericks pull this thing off, Coach, we could be talking about Dallas as the center of the sports universe.
Yeah, maybe Titletown. Maybe Titletown.
That's that, that's crazy. That's crazy. All right, WNBA season has kicked off tonight. Who are you looking forward to watching in the WNBA this year?
Well, I mean, you just look at some of the maybe some former players that I had an opportunity to be around and stuff. Obviously, Caitlin Clark. I know she's just started, and I hear she's already got two fouls, and she's like 1 for 4 from the field, and so it's probably going to be a little bit tougher road for her. But we're all rooting for her. She's done awesome things with women's basketball here. So um, yeah, I like to watch a good quality basketball game.
One thing that people are learning, you've been in the game 23 years. I've been working with young women in high school about 16 years. Add a couple of more years to that, coaching select ball. So we know that our game is a good game. We know that our game is a quality game. But now I think mainstream America is really starting to find out that the women's game is a very good game.
Yes, sir. I mean, I would agree. I mean, I've been doing women's basketball all my life, and it's basketball's basketball, but I think that the women's game is a little bit different than the men's game. And I say that in a way that that they're just that I've been around women a lot when it comes to student athletes, and they're pleasers. They want to do the best they can to help their community, their coaches, their teammates, and so they're in many cases they're all in it for the right reasons.
That's it. So, coach, 23 years in the game, you got a couple of state championships. So, but let take us back a little bit. When did you first know you wanted to be a coach?
Well, I really didn't. I was actually in the U.S. Navy. Straight out of high school, I went to the U.S. Navy. Got an opportunity to go there. Uh, Great experience. And then when I got out, actually I was an average basketball player in high school, and went into the military, and you'd be amazed at how many great basketball players there are in the military that just kind of don't get seen, or every day we'd be playing with players that are like high D1 level players that really never got a chance to go anywhere for whatever reason. And so I got really, really good at basketball. So I wanted to go and play somewhere. But I always wanted to experience, me being from the Northeast in New Jersey, I really never experienced college. We got Rutgers and Seton Hall and Big East and stuff. I never, experienced that. So I wanted to go somewhere south where they experience a really big university. And so I chose the University of Tennessee to go there. And to answer your question, I was playing in a hyper building, and one of the Lady Vols came up to me. This is mid '90s. She came up to me and said, "Hey, you're a pretty good player. Why don't you try to come out and play for the girls' team?" Of course, at first I'm like, "No, I don't want that." Because it was. I didn't realize how good they were, and so she brought me over to see Pat Summitt. And I, from New Jersey, I knew Pat Summitt, but I didn't really know the aura of Pat Summitt. And she sat me down and said, "Hey, we can do this for you and this for you. It's a great opportunity. What do you want to do?" And at that time, I didn't want to coach. But when I was done being a practice player, and then I had an opportunity to walk on because of Pat Summitt, I knew right then that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a basketball coach.
So mid '90s. Let me see. So you played against the Meeks, the three Meeks.
Tamika, Samika, yes. Ace Clement, Shalom Pillow. All these players that I'm naming, they're either coaches somewhere, or they're very, very successful. Brene Laxton is like a heart doctor in East Tennessee. But yeah, Shamika Holtzclaw was probably one of the best players I've ever been around. Tamika Catchings was obviously her success in the WNBA. Samika Randall is a coach right now, and so they were fun to watch, and they were hard to guard.
That's good stuff. All right, Coach, listen. You got to give us a Pat Summitt story. Mm-hmm. You got to give us a Pat story.
Okay, I can give you a story. Pat Summitt was an amazing coach. One of the things about Pat Summitt that really kind of just kind of I migrated to was her idea of making sure that when she's talking to you, you're the most important person in the room. I was a non-scholarship practice player, and every time I talked to her, I felt like I was the most important person in her life. And so that was something that really kind of stuck with me. But a funny story. Every third weekend, Tennessee plays Alabama in football, and that's right around the time when the women's basketball team starts practicing and we start scrimmaging. So we had our practice team was really, really good. I mean, we were 6'8", 6'8", 6'4", 6'3", 6'2" across the board. We were pretty good. And we'd go out there, and we had this one gentleman. And I'm not gonna name him, but he would get upset when he would miss a layup, and so in front of all these Alabama fans that came to watch, he goes up for a layup and he misses the layup, and basically Pat Summitt stops the whole practice, and it was a scrimmage, and it was a live scrimmage, but stops the whole practice because apparently he took his mouthpiece and he threw it across and he said, "Do you think all these people here in Alabama are here to watch you? No, they're here to watch the Lady Vols. So this is not about you." And so those are one of the things that I learned about when it comes to team. You can't do things, for yourself. You got to be able to do them for your team. And so that's just one of those kind of side stories that. And I was scared to death. I was scared to death of Pat Summitt, and I think a lot of people were. But she loved you, and you knew it right away. You didn't want to fail her. You just didn't want to let her down. And so that's why you had so many people do everything they could for her.
That's awesome. So that time at Tennessee gave you the opportunity to walk on.
It did. I mean, I had just got done 2 years of being a practice player. We won the national championship, and back then, when practice players were playing, they had a little bit more leniency. We could travel with them a little bit, and we got all kinds of gear and stuff like that. Now there's probably a lot more stricter guidelines. But Pat Summitt called me in the office one day, and I was kind of on an intramural circuit, and everybody kind of knew that I was one of the better players at Tennessee when it came to the intramural circuit. And she just said, "Hey, Jerry Green, who was the head coach at Tennessee at the time, was like, hey, he's looking for a walk on, and we pinpointed you as someone that you maybe want to do this." And I would say, absolutely, this would be a dream of mine to do it. And so I went to go meet Jerry Green and Byron Samuels and the Tennessee staff, and they said, "We'd love to have you. You're endorsed by the leader of women's basketball, and so we're gonna give you a tryout." And they gave me a tryout, and the rest is history. I got an opportunity to walk on. It was a great opportunity for me. I was a good enough basketball player to go play somewhere D2, D3, and probably shine. But I always wanted that stigma of playing at a big university, and I got my dream.
That's awesome. So from there, excuse me, you kind of get into coaching. So tell us about your coaching stops.
Okay. Well, I started out in Knoxville, coaching a small AAU team. I believe it was like the Knoxville Stars or something like that, and it had one of the players on it that was probably one of the best players I've ever seen play, and she actually went through Tennessee. Her name was Kate McMahon, about 5'4", just an amazing player. But she was on that team, and I just kind of I got involved in the AAU. Now, when I was a practice player, and a walk on, a lot of the guys who were living college lives and they were living it up and they loved it, and I was taking notes. I was just kind of trying to soak it all in because I knew at that time that I wanted to be a coach. And so graduated from Tennessee, got an opportunity to go to Indiana University for my grad school. And of course, I met my future wife, which I'm still married to. I did a stop there, and then won my first state championship there in Indiana. And then from there, I went to Gainesville, Florida, and I spent about 6 years in Gainesville, Florida, Gainesville Buchholz. And then we moved to Texas. Actually, I did have a stint of coaching at Stetson University just for a very brief time because my wife got an opportunity to come to Houston. And so as soon as I accepted that position at Stetson University, I had to decline it because we were going to Houston. And so then my stops in Texas were Fort Bend Clements. I spent 5-6 years there, 8 years at Manville High School, and this is going on my 6th year at Barbers Hill.
Wow, 6 years already.
Yeah, well, I just finished my 5th, so I'm going on my 6th.
Wow. So state championship in Indiana, state championship at Manville. Let me ask you, Coach, from somebody who has never won a state championship as a coach or a player, never made it to state as a coach or a player, never made it to the state semifinals. When I played baseball in high school, our state tournament was like quarterfinals and up, but never made it to the state semifinals. What is it like? What does that feel like to get there? And then not only get there, but to win it all?
Well, I've been very, very fortunate to be surrounded by great assistant coaches and great players. It's right under getting married and having a child, okay, and the big life moments. You reach the pinnacle, you reach the mountaintop, and the views from the mountaintop are just amazing. And the biggest thing is watching all the hard work that you've done, and then you just sit back and you just watch all the kids celebrate, and that's the best feeling in the world. And so that's what drives me today, wanting to get better, because I want to share that experience with my assistant coaches now and my players now, so they can experience that mountaintop.
Wow. So in 23 years, 2 state championships, Have you found that you're much more simple now? The longer you coach, the just kind of the simpler you get.
Well, yeah, I want to. I think as we get older, we always want to try to simplify our lives. But back in my younger days, I was this kind of Bobby Knight version of just get after it, passionate. And now obviously, I've learned some patience. I've learned some, you know, uh, some humility. I've learned how to kind of cater some of that energy. Um, to what is really really important. And so uh, I, it was a great opportunity for me to have all that success. But I think as I get older, I just sit back and I try to I steal from you, and I steal from Deborah Mize, and I steal from Jennifer Alexander, and all these coaches that I think are amazing coaches. And so I learn from them every day. I think it's important for anybody that's watching this. Sometimes when I was younger, I thought I knew it all. Like I was the greatest coach in the world, but obviously I was not. And so there were so many things that I could learn. Like we're going to TABC, in 2 days, and I look forward to bringing my staff there and sitting down and learning. Just learning. So maybe something I can come back and teach the kids. And once you stop learning, it's all cliche, but once you think you stop learning, you need to step
You're
away.
done. Yeah, you're done.
Step away.
That's good stuff, Coach.
I've learned to simplify offenses, simplify some defenses, because in some cases, every year it may be different, and you want to try to cater to the kids that you got, and sometimes, easy is good, simple is good.
That's right. That is one of the things that I'm learning at the end of every season, in which our season ends and my team is not the state champion. I look back on the season and I'm like, man, I think I did a better job than I did last year. I feel like I learn a little bit more every year. I feel like I get a little bit better every year. And that for me personally, that keeps that hunger. That's what keeps that fire going, knowing that I can still be better. Like I can still do this better. So I love that. So we've talked about Pat Summit. You mentioned Bobby Knight. Coach, tell us about your Mount Rushmore of coaches. You got some legends on this list, Coach.
Well, at the pinnacle is Pat Summit. She was my mentor. A lot of things that I do in the programs that I've been at over the years it emulates what she has, showed me or taught me over the years. Uh, if I had a son, which I don't, I have a daughter who's graduating in 10 days. But if I had a son, I'd want him to play for Bobby Knight. And I know he had just passed, but Bobby Knight is someone that I've respected over the years. Some of the things that he did at Indiana were amazing. I think a couple other people on my Mount Rushmore. Tony Bennett is really he's an X's and O's guy. He does a great job at the University of Virginia. If you look at his defensive philosophies, I mean, a team can go in there and averaging 80, 90 points a game, and they leave only scoring 45 or 50. And so
That's amazing. It's amazing.
Jay Wright and his 4-out, 1-in offenses. He's got those guards. They come down and they shoot it, within 8 seconds of the shot clock because his guards just always seem to have confidence no matter what they do. So Jay Wright, obviously, and then Rick Barnes. I mean, he's obviously he's a Tennessee guy, and he's a Texas guy and a Tennessee guy, and he's put Tennessee men's basketball on the map the last 7-8 years. And so some of the sets that he runs, I catch myself watching college basketball, and I say, can I run that set? Can I run that motion offense? Can I do those things with the kids that I have? And so that's what makes watching basketball so interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I've learned, and I share this with coaches who are younger than me. And just because just because I'm older than them, I may have learned one or two things. And I tell them, during March Madness, hey, don't try to do everything you see there.
Yeah.
You won't be able to get it all. you know, and then what if it doesn't work with your kids? That's good stuff, coach.
Yeah.
That is good stuff. Listen, everybody, if you are watching on YouTube, I need you to go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. All right. If you're watching, well, as I already said, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening to this podcast, all right, be sure to go to iTunes, give us a 5-star rating, tell a friend to tell a friend. I've got 2-time state champion, 1 time in Indiana, 1 time in the state of Texas. Coach Bryan Harris, he is currently the girls basketball coach at Barbers Hill in Mont Belvieu, Texas. He is also the assistant athletic director there. All right, coach, let's talk about coaching life balance. What is one of the hardest things about the job that nobody really knows?
Well, I think, from my point of view, the hardest thing that I think a coach has to do is differentiate between the players that they have, because there's all different balances and levels of playing. You got 3 or 4 kids that want to go play college ball. You got 3 or 4 kids that are just happy they're on a team. You got 3 or 4 kids that think that they're better than they are. You got 3 or 4 kids that think that they're not as good as they are. And so you have to kind of balance that. And I think that I would be doing a disservice to the kids if I didn't coach everybody the same when it came to expecting them to go play college basketball. Now, not everybody's going to play college basketball, but I feel that that's what I owe them, and I'm going to do the best I can to do that. There's some other difficulties, but I think that's the hardest part, to just differentiate the styles of how you approach coaching.
Let me ask you this, just out of curiosity. Let's say you got a talented kid, right? And that talented kid, just they're allergic to hard work. For some reason, they just don't always put it out there. What are some tips, tricks, strategies, hacks, lots of different terminology today. What have you found that works when these talented kids that we get sometimes aren't always our hardest workers?
Sure. I mean, your best players need to be your hardest workers, and that is ingrained in their heads when we're in the weight room, or we're doing speed and agility, or we're doing plyometrics or something. Every day we're saying, and it's basically establishing leaders. Usually, the best player or the best couple players have the innate ability to lead because they're the best players, but characteristically, in their mind, they may not know how to do it. And so what we do is we teach our staff to make sure that we always have these leadership opportunities for these kids. It's just a simple, hey, you may be the face of the program, but if you're not working hard, it's just kind of a one-on-one talk. If you're not working hard, then all these other kids that are in this program are going to watch you, and they're going to think it's okay to not work as hard. Shame on me if I send you off to college and you're not prepared because you're slacking and you're not doing what you're supposed to as the best player or the face of the program on this team. Usually that conversation hits home pretty hard, and we have that early once I've established that this kid's going to be pretty special. Sometimes today it's difficult to understand, work ethic. What does Dawn Staley say? She says everybody's got these big league dreams with backyard work ethic, and the parents applaud it. And so I always like that quote from Dawn Staley, but it's true. You got to teach them. You got to teach them how to work. I think working hard is a skill. Okay, you have to learn it. You got to teach the kids how to work hard because they don't necessarily know how to do it. And so I hope I answered your question, but
no, that's good, Coach. That's good.
Talk to leaders and say, hey, there's eyes on you. No matter what, we go somewhere and you're looking to play some college. You don't know who's in the stands, and that old cliche, you never know who's watching. It's pretty true.
Oh, that's good. Just pointing out that we have to teach kids how to work hard. That is, Coach, that's good. That's good. I know that I just wrote it down. I just wrote it down because I need that reminder. Because, sometimes I think we come in and the expectation is you're going to work hard,
Yeah.
and then sometimes when they're not working hard, we're wondering why they're not working hard. Well, we need to check ourselves as coaches. Have we taught them what hard work looks like? This is what hard work looks like in the weight room. This is what hard work looks like in plyo. This is what hard work looks like in speed and agility. That's good stuff, coach. All right. So what's one of the easiest things about basketball that nobody really knows?
Well, the easiest thing, in my opinion, is just all the hard work you put in, and you sit down and you watch the kids shine, and then you watch them smile when they do something. One of the things that we talked about X's and O's and plays and stuff. It's amazing to me to put in a play and it doesn't work 95% of the time. But that 5% that it works, it just makes me smile. And so that's the easy part of basketball is teaching the kids something, and then they actually emulate it on the court. And that's the best part, the easiest part of basketball to me. Basketball is basketball. I've been doing it all my life. Sometimes we get into this kind of, and I get it. To me, like when I was younger, I did that. I made those layups. I didn't miss that layup. So how come you can't do that? And sometimes as coaches, we get into that living through the kid when they can't, and so sometimes I take a step back and say, hey, it's different. We have to kind of just like model it before we expect too much from them.
Yeah, we have to be careful there. Coach, give me your thoughts on this. I stopped losing my marbles over missed layups because I started looking at layups like it's a shot. In girls basketball, it's a shot. It's actually not so much a layup because of the geometry of it. Basically, young ladies aren't on the backboard for the most part, right? You're gonna have some super athletic kids that can get up there on the backboard, get up there on the rim, but for most of the young ladies, it's a shot. They can't take off outside of the paint, and get right up on that backboard. So I just kind of stopped losing my marbles over it and just kind of started doing a little more teaching, and it's like, hey, this is the easiest shot in basketball, but it's also the hardest shot in basketball because everybody expects you to make every single one of them.
Sure.
But I just kind of started teaching, hey, listen, it's a shot, it's a shot. So we're going to treat it like a shot. And we're going to focus really hard on getting better at this shot. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I thought that I was the only one with my team that missed layups.
Oh man.
but that's a great point. It is a shot. You can teach them. You can teach them jumping off of 2 feet. You can teach them jumping off of 1 feet, high off the glass, inside foot. All those technique things. It comes down to confidence. It comes down to repetition. And just repping things. And so, I was watching something about the NCAA champion, and Bobby Hurley when he was doing a practice, and they were working on dribbling drills, and I think someone had mentioned, why are they working on dribbling drills? They're supposed to be the national champions. They should be doing more advanced things, and I think you can say a lot about fundamentals. Working on layups every day for 15 minutes in practice. Even though it's monotonous, even though it's elementary and tedious, it's still very, very important. Also, the big thing on my thought is the reason why kids are missing the layups is because they're not used to the contact that may or may not be there. I can make a layup in transition when no one's around me, but a lot of times when someone's on my hip, so we work on finishing moves quite a bit at Barbers Hill just to get them comfortable around, contact and drawn contact. So you're spot on. It's a shot, we play below the rim in girls basketball. And so
Right.
It is a shot, and so me and you as a coach are like, come on now, that's a high percentage shot. Let's go, but we also have to take a step back and understand, it is a shot. So that's a great point.
Yeah, it's just a little bit different in our game because we play below the rim. So one of the things that I remember, and this is why I asked the question, is I remember the first time I was out coached. I remember it like it was yesterday. So This is one of the questions I love to ask because I like to hear other coaches' stories. So, do you remember the first time that you were out coached?
Oh, I'm out coached every single day. I schedule on our schedule, our non-conference schedule. Of course, you have no control over your district schedule, but your non-conference schedule, I'm going out and I'm trying to get the heavy hitters in Houston. The Hightower, Creeks, Manvilles, all those teams that I'm used to playing because they all have great coaches, and so there's something to be said for getting those teams playing different styles and then trying to understand because we want to play different styles. When you get to the playoffs, you're gonna play an up tempo team. You're gonna play a slow half court set team, and so I take all that in and I watch film quite a bit, and so there are so many coaches in the state of Texas that are so better than I am as a coach, and I say that very, very. I'm humble in the fact that I need a lot of learning to do as well, and I'm 23 years in, and so I pay attention to the coaches that Coach Trotter over well, she was at Crosby, now I think she's at Brazzwood now. I'd watch her, and I would say, man, how does she get those kids to play so hard? And it's just taking pieces of every single coach that you play, and then trying to put it into one coach, and that's what I like to do. And so there are some things that I bring to the table that are pretty good, in my opinion. I think that I bring discipline. I bring hard work, and maybe some other coach would kind of try to emulate that. So I think we're all just kind of looking to feed off of each other in our profession.
Oh, no doubt about it. So you talked to you alluded to discipline and hard work. So I want to be a better disciplinarian. I want to be a better disciplinarian. So in your career, I know that's part of your coaching philosophy, right? Pat Summit was your mentor. Bobby Knight was number 2 on your coach's Mount Rushmore. So how do you go about instilling that discipline, right? Because I know that discipline is part of your culture. I've watched your teams play, and I have a good idea. We usually don't play you guys during the season, but we'll always play you guys in like a shootout or something. And I know what your kids are going to do. I know they're going to play hard, right? I know we're going to run into some ball screens, and no matter how much I try to get my kids prepared for that, and we kind of talk about it, and I've been at Oak 4 years now. So my kids, most of them have an idea of how we want to defend certain things, what we want to do. But we run into you guys and we're still getting banged up on screens. Our kids, I'm telling them, hey, these kids are going to play hard. And it's almost like my kids don't believe me. So how do you not just instill, but install that?
Sure. The first thing I ever learned from Pat Summit was discipline yourself so no one else has to. And so I've done that in my life, in my house, my home life. I've done it, in my everyday work. In practices, you have to, it's simple things like and I don't want to mislead people and think that it's kind of like a militaristic. It's not. It's there are some, even if you have the most athletic team in the state of Texas, you're still going to face someone that is more athletic than you, and you have to figure out how to be more disciplined than them. And it's the game is who's going to make the least amount of mistakes. And so we go toes on the line. Everybody gets toes on the line. Everybody shows up at a specific time. It's accountability. It's building a culture that allows the locker room to function without the coaches being in there, knowing that that's exactly what, if there was a coach in there, everything would be functioning well. Discipline is imperative in a game. I mean, you need it. And at Barbers Hill, okay, we're it is the biggest compliment in the world for a coach to come up to me after the game or whenever in a tournament and say, "Coach, your team is so disciplined." That's the best compliment I can ever imagine. And they're always going to play hard, just like when we play Klein. I know they're going to play hard. You know, I just want to make sure that our kids. I don't want them to make mistakes because when we're playing another team, you know, I want them to strive to be perfect. I know they're never going to get there, but I want them to understand if you strive to be perfect and you're disciplined in what you do, and you're gonna be tough to beat. You really are. And so we instill it. It's every day. You can't just go into a practice or slap a billboard on the wall and say, "Hey, discipline." It doesn't work that way. You gotta practice it every single day. And I got the military in me, so I had an advantage. Some people are turned off of it a little bit. They struggle with the fact that it's so organized and so regimented and structured. They shy away from that kind of stuff. But in the long run, in my opinion, it will make you successful.
Yeah, and the proof is there. The proof is there. The proof is there. Coach, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. Couple more things before we get to crunch time. Coach, tell me about Brianna Turner.
Brianna Turner was probably the best player that I've ever coached. She was 6'3". She was a matchup nightmare. She could play point guard for us if she wanted to. We can put her down low and we can run a high-low and post her up with her back to the basket. We can run her in transition. We can stick her in a press and throw it up top, and then she can turn. She was a great passer. So she had all the physical abilities, but the one thing that made Brianna Turner was why Pat Summitt was the way she was. It's her competitive fire. If Brianna Turner was playing her little sister in checkers, she would smash her. She would smash her and smash her and smash her. And never, aren't you ever going to let me win? No. And so that's Brianna Turner. She was so competitive and fiery, and she never wanted to fail.
Man, that's good stuff. That competitive fire.
Yeah.
Is that a skill? That competitive nature, is that a skill? Is that something we can teach? Or are some just given a little bit more?
Sure. That's you got to have the want to in you. And sometimes, we talk about all the time. Coaches can coach you and do all the things. We can't coach attitude, and we can't coach effort. Now, we can yell at you when you have a bad attitude, and we can yell at you when you have bad effort, but you can control those things. Only you can control how hard you go. And so it's one of those intangibles that you really can't teach. But when you see it as a coach, you get excited because because what that's going to do is it's going to make it contagious. That's why we're looking for those leaders that have that work ethic, and then everybody jump on that train with them. Jump on that train, and now everybody becomes contagious. That's when you got championship teams, and that's what everybody does. Brianna Turner
smashing her little sister in checkers. I love it. I love it. All right, Coach. If you could be anything other than a coach, what would you be?
I think I've thought about this question a lot. You know what I'd like to do if I wasn't a coach? And I'm not going to say an official, but I think I'd like to be a color analyst for football or basketball. Just kind of be in the mass communication world and talk about, because I love sports. Talk about sports. I can talk about sports all day long, and just kind of get that. I think I'd be good at maybe baseball or basketball or something like that as a color analyst. That was my dream job.
Coach, mine too. You see what I'm doing now.
Oh, there you go. Maybe I should join.
I love it. I love it. I'd love talking sports and everything that comes with it. Everything that comes with it. All right, Coach. Tougher job. Who's got the tougher job? Coaches or officials?
Oh, it's definitely the coaches, because the officials, they can ignore everything, and they can just walk out of the gym, and they don't have to listen to your concerns. I mean, they can have some officials, they may have elephant ears and they listen to that stuff and it bothers them, But if you're a really good official, you don't let any of that stuff bother you. And so you don't have to concern yourself with that stuff. But as a coach, everything is concerning. You have to be
Yeah.
concerned about everything. If you have a parent that's concerned, if you have a booster that's concerned, if you have a community member that's concerned, you have to address those concerns. You get an email Monday morning that's negative, you got to address those concerns. And so I would think that coaching is definitely harder. Plus, it's pretty difficult to get 12 young ladies all on the same page, pulling. You got 6 pulling, you got 6 pushing, and we got to try to get them all pulling in one direction, and that's pretty tough.
Listen, it's an art and it is a science to this thing. And coach, you have been doing an outstanding job. An outstanding job. All right, coach, we're coming down to crunch time. Are you ready for this?
Yes, sir.
All right, coach. In crunch time, we're gonna go 3, 2, and 1. So the 3 is for 3 in the key. 3 things all coaches need. The 2 is 2 shots. 2 of the foulest things you've experienced as a coach. And then the last thing is and 1. And that's gonna be one thing, can be anything that you'd like to share before we exit. So we're gonna start right here with this 3 in the key. What do you got, coach? 3 things that all coaches need.
All right, so listen up. You got to have this if you're a coach. Okay, you got to have great assistants. You got to. All right, I've been blessed to have great assistants. I love my assistant coaches here at Barbers Hill. I loved them when I was at Mammal. They do everything that I asked them to do and more. I love them to death. They're awesome, and they really, really make me look good. And so you got to have great assistants. And each of them have their own specific job, and they ride or they take that job to the next level, and so I'm very proud of my assistant coaches. The second thing that you need as a coach is you got to have a blob and you got to have a slob. Okay, you got to have a baseline out of bounds ready to go in your back pocket, and you got to have a sideline out of bounds just in case someone's pressing you. Okay, someone's doing something to you. A lot of times coaches, they get a little flustered because they go in and are they going to play zone? Are they going to play man? I'm not sure what's going to happen. And that's on you as a coach to make sure that you have that defensive blob against the zone, one against the man, same thing, sideline out of bounds. So you got to have those.
Good stuff.
Okay, and then
one more, coach.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The last one. Okay, is you got to save a timeout. You can't be using all your timeouts during the game. You got to save it. You got to save a timeout, and then whatever your coach dreams of, you get 8 seconds left in the game. Okay, it's a tie ball game. You got a quick hitter that's money that you haven't shown anybody before, and then you execute it. You sit back and you watch the girls execute it, and you win a ball game, and you just sit back and smile. So. Got to have great assistants. Got to have a blob. Got to have a slob, and you got to have a timeout with a quick hitter to win a ball game.
That's good stuff. Coaches watching and listening, I hope that you are writing these things down. All right, coach, that was 3 in the key. 3 things that all coaches need. All right, this brings us to 2 shots. 2 of the foulest things that you have experienced as a coach.
Well, I still have shivers about this, and I'm sure that a lot of people that know Texas basketball will remember this. 2013 Texas Regional Quarterfinals. We're playing Clear Springs. We have Brianna Turner. We have Randy Bassard. We have Jordan Hosey, who are 2 of them were eventually McDonald's All-Americans. They got Brooke McCarty, who was one of the best small guards I've ever seen. She was an amazing player. And, Pam Crawford did such an amazing job with that group. They had 5 guards, kind of like Villanova. They had like a 5-7 post. They ran a Princeton offense, and it was tough to guard. We're up 2 with 7 seconds to go. They have to go the length of the court. So I call a timeout, and we set them up in this half court or 3/4 court press. We call Charlotte. It's just keep everybody in front, stay in front of everybody. Don't try to trap or anything like that, and then close out on any shot. Brooke McCarty takes it, does a splice all the way across the middle of the floor. We kind of stop her. We're thinking she's going to take it. She ball fakes. Brianna Turner jumps. She kicks it out to the corner. Jordan Hosey closes out. Perfect defensively. Exactly what you want. They knock it down at the buzzer.
Oh, man.
I still have nightmares about that game. I really do think, in my opinion, that we had a team to win state that year, and we actually won it the next year. But that was one of those things that I hope a coach never has to go through. But it was tough. I think I was out of commission for about 3 weeks after that. But
Yeah,
I figured it
that's
out.
tough.
Yeah,
That's tough. That's a tough one.
yeah, yeah. And so all those kids went on. I mean, all those kids went on to play college basketball. All those Clear Springs kids and all those Manville kids went on to play. So it was a quality game.
So before we get to the second thing, let me ask you, Houston, the scene in Houston, the girls hoop scene in Houston, there is some outstanding basketball that is played in the greater Houston area. So that was 2013. So here we are, 11 years later. Has the game continued to grow? I know there's always going to be ebbs and flows. But has the game continued to grow? Are we doing a good job in Houston?
I think we are absolutely. I would put Houston basketball up against Dallas basketball and San Antonio basketball. It is growing. I think the coaching is getting better. The girls are getting better. I don't want to sit here and talk about all this NIL stuff and transfer portals and stuff like that, because that, in my opinion, that's another conversation. But
Yeah.
if we forget about that stuff, I really do think Houston. I'm not going to say it's the Mecca, but I've coached on the East Coast. I've coached in Central United States. I would say that the West Coast is more fundamental. The East Coast is more athletic, and the center or Texas is a little bit of both in the middle. And that's just my opinion. But there are some amazing young ladies. I mean, you look at the All-Star game you guys ran the other day. Some of those players are amazing.
Yes.
They're just amazing, and so good for them and good for girls basketball.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff.
A couple of them on my team.
Hey, we're all hoping that we get one of those. All right. What last thing? This I'm just kind of interjecting these things before we get to your other shot on 2 shots. So what did you think about the new rules this year? Right. So the 5 fouls, you like that?
I do like that, because in my opinion, I'm not just kind of catering to my team, but I think that 1-and-1, it's a lot of pressure on a kid, especially towards the end of the game. If you know mentally that you're going you're going to the line and you're guaranteed 2, that first shot becomes a lot easier, and it's a mind game. And so I thought I liked it. I don't know that it speeded up the game like it said it was going to, but I just liked it from a mental approach to the game, to give our kids a chance to not stress about that first 1-and-1, because if you miss the 1-and-1, then you don't get another one.
Yeah, I liked it as well, Coach. I liked it. I liked it. Wow, what was that? I liked it because it aligned us with the women's game, the college game,
Sure.
Right, as well as the professional game. I thought it sped up our games in non-district. I thought when we got to district and there's a little more game planning involved and stuff like that, I thought we shot a lot more free throws during district play than we did in non-district play. But I liked it. Do you think we're going to get a shot clock in Texas?
Yeah, I do. I think it's coming next year or the year after, but just be careful what you wish for. I'm okay with it, because it brings about strategy, and it overemphasizes coaching a little bit more, because you got to have strategy.
Right.
Now, I know that you talk about all these platforms and all these blogs that talk about zones and stuff like that, and how bad it is for your kids. Everybody should be teaching a man-to-man concept and then move to zone. And so I read all these things. Careful what you wish for. If you get a shot clock, I don't know that there's anybody that's not going to play a zone.
I know I am.
All you got to do is run a 2-2-1, keep everything in front, get them. They pass half court with 8 seconds left. Now they got to rush. Now you zone them up and trap them. you're not going to get a quality shot up. And so everybody's
Yeah.
in the zone. So careful what you wish for.
Yeah. Yeah. I was talking to an official a couple of days ago. He told me the same thing. He said, look, coach is coming. It's coming. Um, so, the finances and, all the logistics behind that, that's another conversation for another day. Uh, but let's get back to two shots. So your first thing was that buzzer beater in the 2013 regional quarters versus Clear Springs.
Still got
Man, two
yeah.
great basketball teams. What was your other one, coach?
This was one of the bad ones, and sometimes coaches have to encounter this, and it's very very unfortunate because sometimes you try to do the best you can, and you're not going to please everybody. You try to please the masses. Back in I want to say it was around two. I'm not going to name any names, but back in 2015, it was Mamble and Dawson in a district game. It was always a good heated rivalry, and I took a kid out. I took a kid out because they wanted to take the last shot of the third quarter, and I said, "Well, no, that doesn't. We're not going to do that. We're going to do something else." And they need to understand that, and they didn't understand that. So she stood up and called a timeout during the game, and I looked over. I said, "Oh no, ma'am, we're not going to do that." And so she was being defiant. Oh yeah, I see your eyes. She was being defiant, and so I said, "You need to go sit down at the end of the bench. You're done for this game." Because you're not going to do that. You're not bigger than the program. And so it was one of those disciplining teaching moments. Well, it escalated to where she, instead of sitting down, went and got her parents. And then mom and dad walked across the floor while the game was going on and basically tried to embarrass me. And so
Wow.
I hope no one has ever, obviously that's probably the lowest point in my high school career. It was only, 8 years ago. I'll never forget it. Because you want to try to appease the kids, you want to appease the parents as much as you can, but you're not going to make everybody happy. And it's that old adage: everybody wants discipline until it's your kid, And so we talk about that in our parent meetings all the time. Making sure, hey, we're going to hold everybody accountable. We're going to be fair, but we're going to hold everybody accountable as well. And I just remember that incident, and it just kind of it was a low point of my coaching career.
I hate that you had to experience that.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I'm glad people are going to get the opportunity to hear that because it's not all hunky dory.
No,
It's not all hunky dory. So we encounter some things, and even in those situations, man, we have to be so gracious, right? We have to make sure that we maintain our professionalism.
Sure.
As hard as it may be in that situation. Coach, I hate that you had to experience that. All right, Coach, this brings us down to the very last thing in this episode. And one thing, Coach, can be anything that you would like to share before we exit. What do you have for the people?
Well, one of the things that kind of built my foundation of where I am today as far as a coach is the discipline in the military side of it. And so I had an opportunity to be a member of the Ceremonial Presidential Honor Guard in Washington, D.C. And I did Bill Clinton, who was the president in 1992. I did his inauguration. I did a couple of World Series games and stuff like that. But it was a great opportunity for me in the military to be a part of the Honor Guard. It taught me how to be, a great ultimate teammate. It taught me how to learn responsibility. It taught me how to be accountable for myself. It taught me how to be independent. And so it was a great experience for me. And it it's kind of the pillars of what I stand for as we're speaking today.
Coach, that is outstanding. Thank you for sharing. Everybody, listen to me carefully. Coaching is a labor of love with emphasis on labor and emphasis on love. Coaching is also a labor of sharing with the emphasis again on labor and the emphasis on sharing. Coaching is more than a job, y'all. It's a calling. I'm Coach P. Tonight, we have been graced with the presence of one Coach Bryan Harris, the girls' head coach at Barbers Hill High School in Mont Belvieu, Texas. He also serves as the assistant athletic director. Listen, y'all, we just pulled back the curtain to chat with this amazing coach who is shaping the world of athletics. And the last thing I want to remind y'all of before we get out of here is coaches do what most people can't. Thank y'all for tuning in tonight. Good night, y'all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Coach, I